So our primary focus up to this point has been to focus on scratching. We talked about the parts of the guitar, we talked about scratching. What we're going to do this week is we're going to start talking about chords, and we're going to make our way into doing our first song. And so the big thing with chords is understanding what is a chord. A chord is a bunch of notes at the same time, really. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start off talking about chords, and then I'm going to show you how to do a couple things. And then I will also email you pictures of those chords so you can see how they work. So the first thing we'll do is we'll talk about the different styles of chords. The two primary styles of chords that make the world go round are called major chords and minor chords. Now, major chords tend to sound, in the Western world anyway, they tend to sound a little more happy. Okay, and minor chords tend to sound a little bit sadder or darker. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to learn how to play major chords and minor chords to be able to play music, because those are the styles of chords that we generally play. Now, again, in music, what you need to know is the notes are A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Okay, it just goes up to G and then it starts all over again. So A through G, there's no H or Q or anything like that. And yes, there's sharps and flats, but we won't get into any of that right now. Those 7 notes are our primary notes, and that's what we want to focus on. So we want to learn how to play, for instance, an A major chord and an A minor chord, a D major chord and a D minor chord, an E major chord and an E minor chord, that sort of thing. And those are the chords that we're going to use to create music. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how a chord is actually made. And the first chord we're going to talk about is an A chord. Okay, and then what I'll do is, I'll email you a picture of it so you can see how it's created. But the first thing I need you to do is memorize what I'm doing, so when you look at the chord picture, it will make sense to you. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about an A major chord. Okay, now when we talk about music to other musicians, we don't necessarily have to say A major. We can just say A, and everybody would know we were talking about major. In music, everything starts off as major, and then it becomes something else, for instance, as minor. So if I said, play me an A chord, you would know I'm talking about an A major chord. If I said, play me an A minor chord, then you'd know I was talking about A minor. So here's the A chord, or the A major chord. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your first finger and you're going to place it on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. Okay, now remember, when you play notes on the guitar, you have to make sure that you're in the space. You don't want to be on the actual fret. Okay, if I get on the fret, I just get this kind of muty sound. If I get back, I get the sound that I want. Okay, so I want to be in this space. And the rule really is I want to get as close to this fret as I can without getting on top of it. So this would be my 1st fret, this whole space right here. Technically, this silver bar is the 1st fret, but when I play guitar, I want to be somewhere in here. And again, I want to be as close to that fret as I can. 2nd fret, as close as I can to this fret. 3rd fret, as close as I can here. So of course, the easiest way to visualize it is just think about the spaces as being the frets, but your job is to get as close to it as you can. Okay, so we want to be on the 4th string, 2nd fret, so we're going to try and get as close as we can. Then we're going to take our 2nd finger and we're going to place that on the 3rd string underneath, also in the 2nd fret. Now you'll notice when you put the 2 fingers in there, it pushes this finger backwards, which you don't have a choice on. There's no other way of doing it. Okay, but you want this finger as close as you can to that fret as well. So this guy is on the 4th string, this one's on the 3rd string, and they're both in the 2nd fret. Then we're going to take the 3rd finger and we're going to place that on the 2nd string, but that also needs to be in the 2nd fret. So you got these 3 fingers shoved into this one fret, this 2nd fret. Now again, adding this note is going to push this finger back, which in turn is going to push this finger back. So what your job is to try and press on all 3 of these strings without touching any other strings. And you'll notice that my wrist is in a bit of a downward position like this. That way I've got space underneath here, so I'm not touching the string underneath here. See, if you grab on like this, then the problem is you just start touching all these other strings. If I lower my wrist down, I've got more space. Okay, so there's my A chord. I only have my fingers on the strings that they're designated for. They're not touching anything else. So when I go to strum this chord, what I want to do is strum the bottom 5 strings. want the 6th string. I'm not going to play that string. I just want those bottom ones. Okay? So that's what it should sound like. So this is your A chord or A major chord. Now what your job is, there's 4 things that we're going to try and focus on with your chords. The first thing is you want to learn how to visualize, and it's really important that you learn to visualize. Visualization is you can see the chord. Okay, you don't have to keep looking at the chord sheet to figure it out. You're looking at your guitar, you're thinking about where your fingers are, and you're visualizing it. And for guitar playing, it's really, really important to focus on that visualization tool because there's going to be a million things going on in this fretboard. So what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to take my hand off, look at my guitar, and see where I want my fingers to go. Okay? That's what I want to do. That's what I want to focus on, is putting my fingers up there, see where my fingers are supposed to go. Okay? The second thing you're going to focus on is called bouncing. What bouncing is once you've made that chord, you're going to use a muscle memory technique of picking your fingers up and then setting it back down. Picking your fingers up and setting it back down. And the goal is I've already got my A shape right here. I'm not going to my guitar and creating 1 and then 2 and then 3. I'm actually taking this entire shape, pretending like my fingers are super glued together, and I'm picking it up, and then I'm setting it down. And I'm picking it up, and I'm setting it down. I'm going to do that over and over and over again to get comfortable with the shape itself. The one thing a lot of guitar players do wrong is that they'll try and make these chords individually like this, and then they start training themselves to do that. It is a little frustrating at first because you have to do these techniques over and over and over, but that's kind of the way it goes. So you're picking it up and you're setting it down. And you could do that 10 times, 20 times, 50 times, 100 times. The goal is whenever you're doing these things, make sure that you're focusing. You know, don't be preoccupied with something else that's going on. Otherwise, you're really not getting the benefits of this anyway. Usually what happens is people are so busy that they don't have a whole lot of time to practice. And so the time that you do spend practicing, it's important that you really just absorb what you're doing at that time. So you've got, the first thing is visualizing the shape that you want. The second thing is training your left hand to make that shape by making it all in one piece. You pick it up, you put it down. You pick it up, you put it down. And it doesn't matter if you pick them up just a little bit, and it doesn't matter if you set your hand down and come all the way down here, whatever works for you. But make sure that you're looking at your guitar as you're practicing this technique. One of the myths about playing guitar is that you shouldn't look at it when you're playing, and that's pretty silly. Someday you won't have to look at it, but right now you need to look at it. You want to be able to see what's happening. You want to make sure everything is okay. And obviously that's the primary way of learning how to visualize. So you're picking it up, you're setting it down. The third technique is picking through the chord to make sure all the notes are actually working. If I have any notes that sound like this, something's wrong. And usually what's wrong is you're either not pressing hard enough, you're not in the right position in the fret, or you have one finger that's touching a string that it shouldn't be. So you have to think about those things. Am I pressing hard enough? Okay. Am I in the right position in this fret? And of course, this first finger is the one that gives a lot of people problems because it's so far back. But that's what you need to start with. Okay. So you go through, make sure they're all working. If they're not, you try and fix them, and then you do it again. If not, then you try and fix it and you do it again. And you just keep doing that over and over and over. Then the last thing you're going to do is practice your scratching, but you're going to do it to the chord, which is what we refer to as strumming, of course. So those are the 4 techniques: visualization, bouncing, picking, and strumming. This is the A chord. Now, when you look at the chord chart, I'm going to send you a chord chart, and I'm going to show you exactly how you're going to be reading it, but I want you to think about it this way. Your guitar would literally be sitting out in front of you like this, okay? That's how you're going to look at that chord chart. So the strings are running the long way, and the frets are running sideways. And again, when you get that sheet, it'll make a lot more sense to you, but we're going to start with that, okay? So we're going to learn this A chord, and the next time what we're going to do is learn a couple of new chords, and I'm going to give you an actual song to start working on. So the important thing is that you let me know, email me with any questions you have or anything like that, and then we'll go from there. Thanks.